Welcome to Indie Author Hour. I'm Kori Miller, the author of Simply Scandalous Mystery Thrillers. One of them is called Hush, and my soon-to-be-released book is North Downing. And by soon-to-be-released, I mean seriously, like in the next week or so. It's going to be coming out.
The next
one?
Go.
About next week. I decided not to put it out on the 4th of April because I'm going to wait and do it the weekend of Brain to Books CyberCon. So I decided to delay it because it made more sense to do it that way.
Fantastic. That's exciting news.
So, and co-host, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hardy LaBelle. I'm the author of the Video Game Careers series of career guides for aspiring game developers.
Yay! See, I always like to do that. All right, so we need cheering sections. You know, the little hands
do need
things
cheering
down there,
sections.
but, all right,
well, I'm going to have to add cheering to yours, too. Although yours is so, sinfully scandalous. I don't know if cheering is the right. Maybe
I don't know if cheering is the right thing to do.
I'll go.
Or you could go Des, go Des. You know, that's the main character of it. I don't know. You know, occasionally she hurts people. I don't know if you want to be cheering on that. She has a reason for it, though.
That's right.
Every time she does it, there's a good reason why she's doing it.
That's right. In search of justice.
So what's going on with you? We'll start with updates. What happened in the last week?
In the last week, so let's see. As anyone who is a fan of the show, following the show knows, I've been working diligently on my E-class. Clearly, I'm moving at a different pace than some people. Maybe I'm trying to accomplish something with it that other people are. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the way I work. But I keep watching other people, in my build a class classes sort of launch their classes and talk about what happened and all the rest of that type of stuff. And I'm just plugging away, trying to make the content and things like that. So my hope is that by going slowly, I'm going to release something spectacular, just over the top awesome. The big achievement for me in this past couple of weeks has been, I've been developing the graphical style of the slides themselves, like of the class. I did a lot of work on developing the brand for the, kind of the brand of the online class and things like that. But now I'm going down into developing the branding of the actual content, making the slides look the way they're supposed to look and stuff like that. And I think I finally cracked that nut. So I'm very excited about that. It's very cool. I was working on prototypes until late in the evening last night, kind of pulling that all together. So I think it's finally in good shape. From a writing perspective, I think we talked about this last week. I still want to try to enter my books into some contests, but I haven't gotten around to kind of pulling that list of contests together to do that yet. Just because I've been so heads down on the class stuff, trying to get that all done. But anyway, let's see. And I started an outline for that new fiction thing. A couple of weeks back, you and I had talked about maybe laying aside the book that I had started writing and, if I wasn't making any traction on it, maybe starting something fresh. So I started an outline for the new thing. And then I started to get intimidated. Well, I just started to, I don't know. I kind of recognized that I might be going down the same path again, where I was trying to maybe plan too much or something. So I don't know. I'm going to try something a little different with this one. I'm going to pants this one. I'm just going to kind of get in there and just pants away. Maybe I know what I want to have happen in the story. So there's still an outline, but it's really only in my head. I haven't actually written an outline for it. And I'm going to just see if I can get through it that way. It's weird because I'm not a pants kind of person when it comes to work. When it comes to life, pants away. Yes, I'm
pants away. Okay, I don't believe it.
I have. There's a funny story. I was working in England actually. I was kind of traveling on business. I was in England for 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks actually, and I was in the city of Portsmouth, and we got to the end of the work week and the weekend rolled around, and I kind of said to my coworker, what are you going to do? He said, I'm just going to stay close to the pub, watch soccer matches, and drink English beer. What about you? And I said, well, I really want to go see London. And I'd been there years and years ago when I was just a wee child, but I wanted to go just check it out. And he's like, well, it's Saturday morning. You don't have time to make a plan and all those rest of that type of stuff. And I just said, I don't need a plan. I know how to get to London. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go. And so I found my way to the train. I found food along the way. I just really didn't have any kind of a plan at all. And it was just a magical day. I mean, it was just one of those magical days where, because I had no particular plan, I was just pantsing it. I happened to walk right by David Blaine when he was locked in his, box while he was there, and, rode on a double-decker bus on the top and took a tour around, and it was just awesome. And it was actually funny because I got off the train, in London itself, and had no real idea which way to go, and there was a throng of people that seemed to be moving in a direction. And so I thought, well, I'll just follow this throng and see where it leads. And I walked out of the train station, kind of turned the corner, and there was the London Eye, just boom, right on the River Thames, and right on the other side, was Buckingham Palace. And I just like, okay, yeah, that worked out pretty good. And it was that kind of day, I happened to just drive by David Blaine or walk by David Blaine. He was there at his box looking all sad for a month or whatever it was. And it was just cool. I really enjoyed that. So that's kind of, in a lot of ways, that's how I approach, you never know what's going to happen in life, right? You can never know what's going to pop up. So, but when it comes to work things, I guess I've tried pantsing complex projects in the past. I'll put it this way. I've tried pantsing complex projects and just failed spectacularly. I mean, probably the biggest professional failure in my life was when I tried to pants a very complex project that had, tons of dependencies and lots of other people that were involved, and I didn't have a clear plan. And it was just a disaster. I mean, it was just a train wreck. And so I've always been very particular about, okay, if you're going to be doing work, you need to know what you're trying to do, and you need to know what you're trying to achieve. But maybe with the writing stuff, I just need to kind of let it happen a little more. Because anyway, sorry, I'm blathering. I realize I've
a lot of people go through that. I mean, a lot of writers go through that. The downside for me for being a pantser, since that's where I tend to lean, is that it makes writing my the next thing, revisions, edits, all that, makes it harder for me. So to counter that a little bit, and I may have mentioned this before, since I'm using Scrivener, there's a little like note card bulletin board sort of feature, and I just put 1 or 2 sentences there about what the scene is, and then I write the scene. But none of it's outlined ahead of time. I just do it as I'm kind of going. So I'll write a scene and I'll be like, oh, if I said this here, then this probably needs to happen in the very next scene. And then I'll make a note about that. But I don't think I've ever been able to just sit down and outline an entire super detailed novel. That I have not been able to do. It's certainly not on paper. I mean, I can think through things and be like, oh, I think this needs to happen here, and this will happen at the beginning. And if that happens, then this needs to happen somewhere else. But not super detailed. But I will say some little outlining helps me with the revision process, so that it's not such a nightmare to go back and do that.
Just so that you know where material is that you've covered, and is that how it helps? Like, in what way does it help?
For me, it's I write in a very sort of linear. Here's the way this is going to come out. But that's not the way that I used to be. I wrote all over the place. So the example would be on my Archer Jackson middle grade novel. I just pantsed it. I had no idea what I was really going to do, other than it was going to be science fiction, time travel, and involve this kid and his cousin. And that was it. And I had their names picked out. And so I sat down and started to do it. Now, if you read that first manuscript right now, that first draft, you can tell exactly in the draft where the story started to come together and actually make sense. And so a whole bunch of stuff in the first several chapters might make sense, but don't fit with where the story actually ended up. And had I outlined that a little bit, I probably could have made it go, whoa, that works, that makes sense. But now I can't, and I have to go back and really fix the first several chapters in order to make it flow and work with the rest of the book, because the rest of the book was good. But the way that I write now, is I know, for example, that I'm going to write 12 chapters. It's going to be about 60,000 words or more. And that means about five scenes per chapter. That's about how I do it. And I say, okay, so I'm going to write it in this way. And I write it in acts because I'm doing mystery thrillers. I write in acts. That works for me. And so I know in first act, I want this to happen. Second act, I want X to happen. So it's organized from that perspective.
Well, let me ask you, okay, so then what structural purpose does a chapter serve? And are all the scenes in a chapter about the same character? Is it the same action? I mean, is there a structural purpose to what you're calling a chapter or not?
Well, it's more like the acts. I think in terms of the acts, the act might have 3 chapters in it. So I know, but I'm starting in chapter 1. I need to get my character introduced, the issue introduced, and maybe there's a dead body right then. Maybe not. Depends on what the story is. So that stuff is happening in the first chapter, actually. That stuff's starting to happen. And so now she's already starting to investigate. By second scene, third scene, fourth scene, she's starting to get into who's around that I need to talk to. Mm-hmm. You know, who can I ally with? That sort of stuff starts to come up. And so it's structured that way. But I never have to move my scenes around. I mean, because the way that I write, and other writers will move that's why they like Scrivener so much. They can move their scenes up and down, and this scene would be better here. I actually don't write that way. They just come out the way they're supposed to come out in that order when I write. I don't know why, but that's the way it's been for the last, for all the Deadly Sin stuff and for Hush and for North Downing. That's exactly how it's been written, how I've written it. And I have not had to reorganize anything at all. And in fact, in Hush, I wrote so much extra stuff that I put some of that ended up in North Downing because I thought, that needs to come later. So I just had it like an extra file. Like a deleted scenes, but they weren't really deleted. They were just extra scenes. And I said, okay, these need to happen, but I need to figure out a way to bring them in over in North Downing or whatever, or in a short story. I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of how I write now versus earlier.
Hang on 1 second. I am sending okay. No, I get that. What I'm asking is, I understand kind of that approach. What is there something that you're trying to achieve with the chapter? In other words, what makes you, is it just literally the word count? I mean, is it structurally, is there something that you're trying to achieve in a chapter? Because you have acts, you have a 3-act structure, and you have scenes which are driving the plot forward, and you're trying to achieve, kind of the things that you need to achieve in the scenes. I'm curious to know, is there something in your plan where you'll sit down and say, oh, okay, well, it's whatever you said before, 5 chapters or 6 chapters or something like that. And so in chapter 1, I want, I don't know, mystery. In chapter 2, I want danger. In chapter 3, I want, romance. Or does the term chapter, does it have any structural meaning to your, to the way you're building the book or not?
To me, no. To everybody on the outside, it would make it, they would interpret it more, I think, as, well, in chapters 1 through 3, X basically needs to happen. So you need to be introducing your character, introducing the main plot, what's happening, and starting to move that plot along. And then as I get into maybe chapter 4 or so, and sometimes a little bit earlier than that for me, I introduce a subplot. Something else is happening. And for my books, it's one of those things of, it continues. It started in Hush, it goes through North Downing, it'll continue in On Your Six, but then that'll wrap up that subplot, that main subplot that I have going on. But I generally don't think, I think in terms of scenes, I generally don't think in chapters as much. The scenes really drive things for me. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's,
it does. No, it makes perfect sense. I'm always, the more I dive into this, the more, especially when it came to, even doing the book design on my books and kind of designing the interiors and the exteriors and stuff, the more I realized that, I don't know, you can do it however you want. You can, whatever works for the writing and whatever works for the structure of the book. It's just fascinating. I'm just curious. I was just curious to kind of know if there was some, I don't know, some structural thing in your mind as you're thinking about a chapter, what not really. It's mostly just a collection of scenes.
It's a collection of scenes, and one scene feeds to the next scene, and I write in order. But I'm trying to think if there's been a time. I think maybe when I first started writing Hush, there may have been a time where something popped. That's probably how I ended up with those extra scenes. Actually, something popped into my head, but I knew it didn't need to be right here, so it just got put somewhere else because I knew it needed to be somewhere, but not in the story. So an example would be Patrick Murphy is a main character in the whole series. He's one of her love interests. She has more than one, but he's one of her love interests, and they have a pretty intense relationship. But there was some stuff that I was writing about him that I went, this doesn't belong here, and I just put it in extra scenes, and I didn't really use it yet, but it's just there. So I don't get distracted as I'm writing my scenes. When that pops up, it just goes somewhere else, and I continue with my scene writing it in the order it needs to be. So that just makes it easier for me when I go to revise. I don't have to move anything around.
Gotcha.
Which is nice. There's some authors who write backwards. They'll start with the last chapter, and I've never done that. I've never even tried to do that. Start with the last chapter and then come forward. That just boggles my mind. I'm not sure I could actually write that way. But I've tried it.
No, but one thing I have done, what I thought was very helpful, was people. One recommendation that someone or several people kind of gave me was that you don't necessarily have to restrict yourself to the linear process.
Right.
If there's a scene that that you want to do and you're having a hard time writing the scene that you're working on, you can, skip to that other scene and take it out of sequence. Oh, that was kind of smart. But yeah, I don't think I could ever write it backwards on purpose. I don't know. I never tried it. It'd be interesting to try maybe.
See, the interesting thing when it comes to the scene stuff, when I'm writing scene by scene by scene, if I'm working on a scene and it's not flowing quite the way I think it's supposed to, I'll just stop writing the scene and move to the next scene because I know in my mind where it's supposed to go, and I can still pick up the next scene and keep going forward and come back to the scene. And sometimes those scenes just end where they need to end. I have in my head that the scene needs to be about 1,000 words, let's say, but sometimes they don't end up to be 1,000 words. And so I just have to stop forcing that and move on to the next scene. And that next scene might end up to be 1,500 words because that's where it needed to be. So that's usually how it works for me. And that just makes it flow. It's just simple. I like it that way. It's easy. I don't know. I might try that though sometime, the whole try and write with the last chapter and then go the other way. That just seems, it's interesting. I won't do it now. I have too many other things I'm working on, but I might try that sometime and see what that's like. I don't think I'll ever do a full on outline though. I can't imagine I'd be organized enough to do that.
So what about you? Do you have big news? You got stuff going on?
I have a lot of things going on. One thing I'd like to mention, just a moment ago, a bird hit the window. So when I kind of looked the other way, it's because a bird actually hit the kitchen window.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my goodness. Usually it doesn't happen on the kitchen windows. It happens on some other windows in our living room area. And it's a huge thud sound, usually startles you, which is what happened. Other things going on. This is not specifically related to writing, but our building that we're building out here on our property, they actually got the plumbing, it got plumbed, it got, the ground stuff, the electrical, and they started to lay concrete yesterday. And these guys some of them worked all night long on this because we're expecting some bad weather, I guess. Oh. And so they've got to get this cured. It's got to start being cement essentially. And so they're out there now. So I don't know if anybody can hear the binging and all that of their equipment, but that's what's going on out here. And the reason this is exciting for me is because when we have that building done, I get to have my other building all to myself. And that building is going to be where I can do all my podcast stuff. And so I'm excited about that. So I'll have a sound studio in there that's perfect for recording audiobooks, that sort of thing. And so I'm looking forward to that. That's the big thing is this, we finally got it going and I'm excited about that. So that's my really big exciting news. And then last week I mentioned I had an international sale on Kobo, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't notice any downloads. And I was looking this week and there's also been some downloads. And I went, oh, because I have a free book over there. And so there were a couple free downloads and that's cool. And then I was listening to Joanna Penn's podcast. It drops on Monday, but I listened to it listened to it today, and she was interviewing Mark Lefebvre. I cannot pronounce this man's name.
Lefebvre?
But he's the guy he's the director of self-publishing and author relations at Kobo. So he gets interviewed a lot and everything, and he's been on our shows several times. Well, he was on there for this episode talking about how you can actually get your books to sell on Kobo, which I'm keenly interested in doing. And so I was listening intently to this conversation, and he said something's going on with their dashboard. And if you see your downloads are like, I had 3. He said it's probably double what you're actually seeing. It's probably a little bit more than that. Because some wonky thing was happening. He said, oh, okay, that's cool. That's good to know. He also said that if you want to get traction on Kobo, it can take 6 to 9 months to really get traction on Kobo, and you can't dip in and out. So for example, if you've got your books in KDP Select and they have to be there for 90 days, and then you get them out of there and you go and put them on Kobo, but then you get frustrated or whatever on Kobo and you take it back and you go put it on Amazon again, you're dipping in and out and you're never going to gain traction on Kobo, partly because of how their algorithms work. Mm-hmm. And okay, that's good to know. 6 to 9 months of work. And he said this before, I've heard him say this before, that you need to remember to do all of include Kobo in your promo stuff, like links and things like that, not just Amazon, because I think the habit for a lot of authors is just to focus on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I had all the links on my website at one point, but it got really cluttered. And so I need to think of a better way to get the links all there and make it look good. And some of my landing pages have the Kobo link and the Amazon link, but they don't have like the iTunes one necessarily. So I'm going to go back and take a look at some of that. But he had some great information. We've talked about this before, the global pricing, when you're pricing your books for different markets. India is becoming a huge, huge market, but there's so many books there that you need to sell them really cheaply. So it's more about volume versus amount of money you're going to make, just to get discovered. But I went back and checked my pricing on Kobo for different things, and there wasn't one for India, so that's not there yet, I guess. But I adjusted all my other prices for different countries. And I'm still having a hard time finding accurate information that tells me, how should you price your ebook in Canada? How should you price your ebook I found one for the UK a while back. How should you price your book in Japan? That, because you need to make it fairly specific is his point. Otherwise you won't get the sales in those countries and things like that. So I made some adjustments so I could see if anything would happen. Now that I've had at least one sale and a couple downloads, adjusting the prices, I don't know, maybe that'll do something. We shall see, but I thought that was really interesting. Oh, and he mentioned this. He and Joanna talked about this too. 2-dimensional covers versus 3-dimensional covers. Apparently iTunes doesn't accept 3-dimensional covers, and Kobo prefers 2-dimensional covers. So both iTunes and Kobo, who are number 1 and 2 respectively in the world in terms of ebook sales, prefer the 2-dimensional covers, and it's because they have found that those sell better than the books with 3-dimensional covers. I thought, oh, that's really interesting to know. And so I went and looked at Joanna Penn's books on Kobo, and the way that she was doing a box set, because a lot of times authors, when they do a box set, they'll make it look like it's a box, right? And with the books. Apparently that doesn't move as well. And so she has a cover that it's a 2-dimensional cover, and it's got the name of the series at the top and then the number of books in that series. So maybe it's books 3 through 5 or whatever. And then below that are 3 images, and those are the original cover images that were on the books when they were sold individually. That's how it looked anyway. And then below that is her name. And she goes under J.F. Penn when she writes fiction. So that's a way for authors to organize their cover when they're trying to do a box set, and still include the covers of the other when they were individually selling them or whatever. But that was really good to know. I had no idea. I didn't have any information about that, whether or not 3D covers were a good thing to do from a sales perspective. But I guess Kobo and iTunes have perhaps found that no, not necessarily worth doing. The important thing is to make sure people know what they're getting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I'm still seeing in the Facebook publishing group or Facebook advertising group and stuff like that, people are still pushing towards the kind of 3-dimensional mock-up of the box set thing. I guess, yeah. No, I don't know. To me, the nice thing about the box set is the mock-up thing, 3-dimensional mock-up, is it makes it clear you're getting a bunch of books, I mean, it's nice that way. It just visually conveys the information, but it would be interesting to take a look at Joanna Penn's, whatever she's doing over there. I don't. So she writes fiction. I honestly don't know.
She writes fiction and nonfiction. Under nonfiction, she writes under Joanna Penn, and under fiction, it's J.F. Penn.
Gotcha.
Because she's in the mystery thriller category, as am I, and so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to look at her stuff and how she was doing it. And I don't have any information that proves or shows or supports that doing a 3D cover, whether you did it for a single book or you did it for your box set, helps or hinders sales at all. But apparently Kobo has information that says these books move better if they're in 2-dimensional covers versus if they're 3-dimensional covers. They apparently have that data. And so I thought it's an interesting thing to know. But again, as long as you can convey this is what the reader's getting and you do it very clearly, then yeah. But there's an expense involved in doing that 3-dimensional cover that's perhaps an added expense versus doing the 2-dimensional cover. I mean, I know that the service that you and I talked about, you asked me who I used, and I can't remember who I used, but I made a 3D cover. And it was like $20 to make that 3D cover off of, a price I'd already paid to have done. And then I wanted to do a 3D one because I thought, it looks cool. They do look cool. There's no doubt about that. They look pretty cool.
Or you can ask your old pal Hardy because he taught himself how to do it in Photoshop. So
did you really? Well, now I know, but I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't want to teach myself how to do that. So now I know.
Yeah, I downloaded it.
But they look cool. But I'd like to know if there's anything that supports that they help your books sell more. That'd be nice to know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think obviously that's a valid, that's a valid concern. I don't know. I got to look at Joanna Penn stuff, and I got to look at kind of how Kobo is handling things. It'd be interesting to kind of compare and contrast. And you reminded me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Have you put your books on Kobo?
Yeah, they were up there, and then I put all my stuff into KDP, so I had to unpublish. Oh, right. But I'm done with KDP now, so I'm gonna. You just reminded me that I need to republish on Kobo and other outlets. I got to put them back up on Nook and put it back on Kobo and all that stuff. I didn't even bother.
Nook is Barnes & Noble. Nook has or is about to pull out of UK for sales. That was in the news in the last week or so.
Good.
They're not doing it in the US yet.
Doing what?
Pulling out and just getting rid of that division. So that's something to be aware of. If you've got all of your income coming from one particular platform, it's probably a good idea to diversify. It's why I don't have all of my stuff just at Amazon, and why I wanted to crack that Kobo nut. I really wanted to get some sales over there. I wanted to prove that I could get something done on that platform. My next one is, because now I did it on Kobo, I can keep doing it. Now it's iTunes. Can I get something to sell on iTunes? I haven't been able to do that yet. And so that will be my next. I want to do this because those are the top 3 right there: Amazon, Kobo, and iTunes. And I'm talking internationally, not US only. US only, it's Amazon, obviously. But then I think Kobo and iTunes are battling for that second spot. Can't remember. But like Kobo in Canada, it's Kobo. They're number 1 in Canada for ebook sales, and they're number 1 in several other parts of the world for ebook sales, and it's not Amazon. And so if you're looking ahead, diversify where you're putting your books and do it globally. That's why that pricing is a big deal. And that's the plan that I'm following. And I've been doing that for over a year. I mean, I knew I needed to do that, so that's what I've been doing. Slow build. It's a very slow build. But I mean, I also haven't had a whole lot of books out yet. So I mean, there's a couple different things being juggled to make this all move forward and happen and get traction, for sure. But iTunes is where I'm going to focus next, and I have my books over there, and I use Draft to Digital and I use Smashwords.
Oh yeah, Draft to Digital. I forgot about that. Do they charge you for that?
No.
They don't charge you? Well, how do they make money?
I don't know, but they're not charging me to distribute my books. They get a cut, just like anybody else gets a cut. I don't know.
So they are charging.
I'm fairly certain they get a cut. I don't think of it as charging though. So there's no upfront charging on anything. So when you ask, are they charging? No, I don't pay any upfront cost for anything. But Smashwords get a cut if anything sells through. You can see. I'm fairly certain that there's a cut involved. I could be wrong, but this is one of those interesting situations where I don't care because I'm just trying to get them into different places and get them to sell. That's really my focus right now. And so I don't really care about that so much.
Speaking of selling,
as long as it's reasonable, I don't really care.
Are you going to resurrect your funnel, your Facebook funnel?
Not yet.
No,
not yet. It's got to wait because I want to do it when I've got the first 3 books done, because that is a box set for me. Even though Desiree Jackson is a character that I'm going to keep writing, there's a plot line that's going through 3 of the books. And so then I can package those 3 books together and have Off the X as a completely different 4th book with her as the lead character. And so I want to be able to do that all at that time. It's just like I said, the whole launch thing. I'm not going to do a launch for North Downing. I mean, you'll know about it. I'll talk about it here. I'll talk about it, Brain to Books, and I'll bring it up. But I didn't do a pre-order. And we can talk about this more too. I didn't do a pre-order. I'm not planning to. And there's not going to be any sort of launch party. I may go out to dinner, celebrate, but I don't want to do it until the 3rd book, so that when people get introduced, they know, oh, there's 2 other books. I can read this one and the other 2. Oh my goodness, and look at this. There's a whole series of Deadly Sins short stories I could read. So it's that sort of thing. That's where I want to put my energy and my money, quite frankly. I didn't want to spend money on that sort of stuff when there wasn't really anybody else, and there wasn't anywhere for them to land really next. Because people they binge read just like you binge watch stuff. You find a character you like, they start to binge, and they want to get that book right away, and it's not ready. And I got that feedback on Hush, because I released Hush, but I didn't have North Downing ready. And then I had readers who were disappointed because they didn't have any other book to read in the series. And they didn't want to wait. Made me work faster, actually.
So they read the short stories books, they read the novel, and then they wanted more?
Some of them read the short stories, but most of them who gave me the feedback had only read Hush and wanted the next book, the next novel. They didn't want a short story. They wanted the next novel. And I just didn't even have it ready. I was working on it, but it wasn't there. There was no way I was going to be able to have it ready as quickly as what they would have liked. And, there's some writers who are writing on a schedule of like every month or every 3 weeks or whatever, they've got that next book out. I cannot seem to write that fast yet. And so I'm putting it out as quickly as I possibly can. So right now, North Downing will be done. I'm already working on your 6th. But it's still going to end up staying, I think, pretty much close to the schedule that I already outlined for the year, is my guess. So we'll see. But, if I were going to do it all again, I didn't have the patience. I should have had more patience, and I'm not a patient person generally, but I should have had more patience with this, and I should have released all the books basically around the same time, like write them all, like some other authors have done, write the first 3, and then start releasing them so I could release them really closely together. That's why I probably should have followed that advice.
Just to build momentum that way?
Yeah. And that's what I would suggest other people do. If you're going to start, you could build more momentum perhaps that way. And then your readers are happy because there's at least 3 books that you could be taking your time a little bit on the 4th one because you got the 3 out there.
Yeah, that
so
makes
that's
sense.
Just food for thought. Of course, it's also a thing of you're setting people up then as expectation wise, because now they're expecting that you're going to have out that quickly all the time. So that could be kind of damaging, but it's a thought. I mean, you still at the end of the day have to do what reasonably works for you and your schedule and your life and all of that. But it is why I did the Deadly Sins series in between, so that I'd have some short stories for people and they could get to know the characters and all that just through reading the short stories. And they're great for commutes and things like that. They don't take that long to read. Deadly Sins 3 has three stories, each about 5,000 words, something like that.
It is interesting because I think I would fall into the exact same category. I think I would, if I was reading a series of novels that I enjoyed, I would, and all I had next was a book of short stories. I don't think I'd go there. And it's weird. I don't know why. But yeah, I'd be like, nah, I don't want to read short stories.
Mm-hmm. It's 2 different types of readers, I think, is what's going on.
Yeah.
And so me trying to target people who have commutes and things like that with the short stories, makes perfect sense because they want the satisfaction of being able to finish a story in the time that they're, traveling from point A to point B and not driving, obviously. So they're on a train or they're on a bus or they're on a ferry, a plane, that sort of thing. So that's my target when I'm thinking about the audience for the short stories. But that's actually not how I started out. I did it. The whole reason I did it was the two reasons. One, to get to my character better. That's how it started. But two, to have those things in between the novels. But like I said, that's not working for people who are avid readers of novels. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem to be what they're happy with, what they want. So there you go. I did have an interesting and unfortunate experience.
What was that?
I need to contact CreateSpace about this. I had some customers who purchased a book. They purchased 2 books, one of the Deadly Sins one, and then Hush. And this is, I will say this right now, this is the first time this has ever happened or that I'm aware that it's ever happened, but their book, their copy of Hush, the binding got messed up and the pages started coming out on the second reading. So there was a problem with the book. And so now I have to contact CreateSpace and let them know there was a problem with this customer's book.
You have to do that? They can't do that? They
could do it, but I think the customer service CreateSpace, they need to hear from the author too. That's my opinion. They need to know that a reader came to me and complained about their service because this is their print on demand service.
Sure.
Whether that person decides to follow through and contact them directly, I have no idea. But that was something to be aware of. And the interesting thing is, it's not like I sell a ton of print version, but when I do, I don't want them falling apart.
Right.
Yeah.
I
mean, that doesn't work well for anybody. So I don't want that to happen. And I've been hesitant because I haven't really investigated Ingram Spark enough to know if I should go that route. And I know a lot of authors do. And so that's on my list it's in my notes actually today of one of the things that I'm going to revisit is the Ingram Spark and see if I should go that route. So I don't know. We shall see. It's the first time it's ever happened. I mean, I've had lots of books printed from CreateSpace and had no issue. So I will say this was actually kind of funny. When I did the proof for Dante, Dante was supposed to be a square book. I had it all set up as a square book. And they sent me the proof copy and it was 8x10. And I'm looking at this and going, what is wrong with this? Why? Oh, they didn't do the print thing correctly here. That's why this is all messed up, because they had like a banner thing and just weird borders. It was odd. It was really odd. And so I contacted them and said, no, I had this listed as something that was supposed to be a square. And so we went back and forth a little bit, but then they fixed it. So it was okay.
So it works correctly now.
Yes, it's all okay now. But initially they thought maybe I made a mistake in how I set it up. I said, oh no, I did not. You can check.
Well, yeah, I guess it makes sense, like for them, they probably get most people getting things, not in a custom size necessarily. They were the more usual formats and they just, I don't know. There's been a couple of times when there have been some interesting choices made by whatever they call their proofing process or their final submissions process, where it's not a computer, it's a person pushing the mouse and making some decisions about stuff, which is why they recommend you proof your books for sure, because there's someone who, if you forgot to dot an I or cross a T or something like that, they'll come along and they'll do it for you, and it may not be what you want. Like putting on an 8x10 paper for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely review your books. There was another thing that came up in the news in the last couple of weeks. Speaking of Amazon and publishing through Amazon, this has made the rounds on several shows. I didn't know if you heard about it, but there was an issue with people putting, and it has to do with people who have their books in KDP because you get paid on pages read in the program. And so someone gamed the system, of course, and I say of course because it happens all the time. Someone wants to figure out a way to do something different and make some money. And so they were putting the table of contents or something in the front, but there was something clickable in the front and it led the person to the back of the book, which translated into pages read because it led them to the back of the book. And so Amazon, this was unfortunate because there was one author who I think he was a traditionally published author, and then he indie published a book that he had, and he ended up losing, because authors can potentially lose a lot of money because of what this these people were doing gaming the system. So the ones, their pages reads were all messed up and there were just issues. So now they're doing a rule about where your table of contents needs to be for Amazon. So be aware of that. Everybody needs to check that. You need your table of contents in the front of the book. Apparently they don't want you to have it in the back of the book. And I've noticed that sometimes when I go to create my book in an EPUB or whatever, a different file, it'll generate an auto generate of a table of contents in the back. Personally, as a reader, I like that. I like that, okay, I'm in the back and I want to go back to the front. You know, I find that useful, but you need to check that. Those of you who are going to be doing the Amazon stuff, look at their terms of service again and make sure you know where you're supposed to put your table of contents, because that was kind of a big deal. Big hairy deal the last couple of weeks. I'm not in that program,
I gave up. As you know, I gave up on listening to podcasts, so now I'm just in the dark. I'm walking through.
Well, I'll just share the news as I find it, and I think, oh, that would be useful. We need to talk about that a little bit. But that was one of them. If that's a formatting thing, you need to be aware of it, because what Amazon will do is just reject your book, or if they find out that your book is like that, they'll send you a message, and your book will be disabled for a period of time till it's corrected. And so that's kind of what's been going on now. And this author I was talking about, I don't remember who it is, but it happened to him. His book was taken down, and it was right in the middle of a launch and a BookBub ad or something. And and his book was taken down. And he's like, what the? And I think Amazon has since fixed the damage with him, the damage. But you know, the bottom line is that Amazon reacted very quickly to the issue, and just sort of a huge sweeping, this is what we're going to do. And it hurt other indie authors that it shouldn't have hurt. And so Amazon has to think through that process a little bit. But hey, Amazon, just telling you, I'm a reader. I like my table of contents in both locations, actually. I think it's helpful for me.
And that's what's so odd to me is that, once again, you know, Amazon needs more than just robots checking this stuff. You need more than just robots. And I realize that the number of people who are creating and submitting books to Amazon far outstrips what any one human being could ever review. But they need something, because it sounds to me like the scam is, you know, you open the book and it says, you know, click here for the super secret offer that's going to take you to the end of the book. And then 300 pages of crap, you know, whatever it is, and he goes to the end of the secret offer, which is the real book, or who knows, something, whatever. But that's not the same thing as someone actually putting a legitimate table of contents at the end of their book, so that it's convenient for readers to be able to go back to where they want to go. So I don't know. I mean, once again, you know, it's a draconian fix like that of coming along and trying to say, we're going to change the system for everyone so that it works this way.
Well, you know, when they switched to we're going to pay you based on pages read, the question was, how are you going to really know how many pages they've read? And now what this highlights is that Amazon didn't know what people were really reading. That's exactly what this showed. So
yeah, they're just tracking a bookmark somewhere and saying, oh, well, they went that far into the book, so therefore blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. And apparently that's not the case. And so someone gamed it and figured it out and got caught, and here we are. So at any rate, bottom line, make sure you're aware of where your table contents needs to be when you're putting your book over on Amazon.
Good advice, because I'm going to have to re-release, so I will fix that, because I'm pretty sure my table contents is at the end, at least on the first book.
Yeah, but I don't know if it really, I think it applies mostly to people who have their books in KDP, so when you're a part of that program.
Oh, I see.
Because you're getting paid out, but they may not even be looking at any of the other books. It's just the ones where they were having a payout.
Gotcha.
So be aware of that. You know, just check that. And like, I only have one book in KDP, and it's Dante, and I don't even remember if I still have it in KDP. It never sells in there. I mean, it hasn't sold anything in there at all. I can honestly say that. So all my sales of Dante have been from me selling it directly to people. If I recall correctly, I think that's true.
You're a good salesperson. We've established that in the past. Your face-to-face sales is strong. Your sales game is strong.
It's very subtle, actually. I'm not pushy at all.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that it's,
I'm really subtle when I do it. I've learned, part of it is that one of the things that I like to study, I've been studying for over a year on my own, is body language analysis, because I love that. And I was set up to work with a leading expert on body language analysis, and I got waitlisted, and I'm still waitlisted, but I'm hoping to still work with this person. But it comes in handy, when you really learn how to read a customer well, just the body language. And it's just one of those things, especially face to face. It helps a lot to sit there. I mean, over the phone, I can pick up some stuff, but man, I can tell by the way they're walking, holding themselves or whatever, whether or not they want a sample of something that I've got. Just know.
Yeah. It is funny how many non-vocal communication cues there are. Just amazing numbers. It's ridiculous.
So check it out.
So what do you got going on? We talked about my news. You obviously mentioned at the top of the show you're going to hold off publishing North Downing until Brain to Books. Yeah,
CyberCon. That's April 8th through the 10th. And I decided I was originally going to do the book. I was going to release April 4th, and I thought, I'm going to have a lot of people around that weekend. I should probably wait and just announce it then. And I'm participating in 2 takeover events that weekend. And a takeover event, this was sort of new to me through Brain to Books. You know how sometimes, and I've done this, authors, when they're launching a book online, they'll do a Facebook party or a Facebook launch.
Yeah.
Well, I've done that, and that's really hard to carry on your own. To do that for several hours on your own is kind of a difficult thing. You're coming up with games and giveaways, and it's just exhausting. And so I've done that. But a takeover event, it focuses on one author, but then every hour is given to a different author. And so that author just comes in and talks about their stuff for an hour and mentions the other author or whatever, but they do that. And so I'm doing 2 of those events during this CyberCon, and one of them is Helldat, which is its own takeover event, but they're doing one in conjunction with the Brain to Books event. And so I'm going to be doing that takeover event with an author and publisher out of Israel. They're doing the first day. It's a 2-day event for the Helldat. I think it's a different author for the second day. I can't remember now because I got moved. I moved myself because I had a scheduling conflict with something else. But basically, you come in for an hour. It's online on Facebook, and you do giveaways. You talk about your book. And so I've been sitting down and organizing all of that. Now, what's really cool, I don't know if you've ever done this, Hardy, because it's organizing everything to do for several hours on your own is hard. But even an hour is like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But Angela Chrysler, who put together Brain to Books, also created a Facebook takeover event guidebook thing. And she's got it over on her website. And if I could have found that when I was trying to do my Facebook stuff on my own for my launches, that would have been so helpful. She's so organized. So just go check out Brain to Books, her actual website, and you'll be able to find that Facebook takeover guide. Because I sat down, this was a great exercise, actually. It forced me to look at my website and make sure I had everything up to date. And there were some things that were not up to date. So I was I'm reorganizing some things now, but I also was doing a lot of I have to update this Word doc. I have to update this Word doc. I have to put this with this. So this was really good from an organization perspective. And I have one sheet now that has all of my links for everything on it, because she pointed out that's easier than if you're trying to reach for a link to bring it into your takeover event. Just have it all on a Word doc so you can just have it. But it was one of those simple things that I never did, right? And it's time consuming to do. I have a lot of different links I have to include for a lot of different stuff. And so that I did this was all on Saturday. I spent a good portion of Saturday putting together a Word doc that just involved all of my different links for everything, whether it was Pinterest or LinkedIn or whatever, every single link, all my buy links, all my author sites, Stitcher, iTunes, everything. And then I did I can't remember. I think it was Steve who had come into Indie Author Hour a couple times. I think he was the one who mentioned this. I'm not sure, but we were talking about using Canva to create like social like cards that you can put a quote from your book on, that sort of thing. So I did that. I created, I don't know, maybe 6 or so of those so far, and they're all fun quotes from Des or whatever that are on these cards. And I actually designed this in Canva, and they don't look so bad. I'm just saying. They look pretty good.
Nice.
And they're simple because, you want simple. Simple is better than really, convoluted and, I don't know, crowded. So they're very simple. So I did that. That was Saturday. And I got that already.
So what are those cards for now? What do you do with them?
So I can use those. I can use those during the takeover event and just post them. As we're chit-chatting about other things, I can use that as just something to post and talk about or joke about or whatever. It's just filler, essentially. But I also tweeted one. So I can use these for tweets too. So there's another reason why I did it. I can use them for tweets. I can use them in a Facebook thing. Because they're designed to be able to go into Instagram.
Sure.
I used one that was a square.
Great.
So
Great.
Where I wanted to put it. And then this also is forcing me to look at my excerpts. So rather than going through and trying to find all these excerpts for this event, guess what I decided to do?
Use your Publish experts.
Use my Publish experts, right? I'm like, oh, duh, I already have them over there. I'll just lead people there, and then they can see an excerpt over there. So that was really nice. Yay, Publish. One more reason to love Publish right
Yay,
there.
Publish.
Is that you already have a bunch of excerpts and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So during a takeover event, keep that in mind. I thought that was really cool. So it's been a fun exercise to go through all of this just to prepare for the cyber convention. And then I'm also doing a panel. I think I'm doing 2 panels. One of them I think is about multicultural diversity or something. I really don't have enough details yet other than the title of the panel I'm supposed to be doing. And then I think I'm doing a panel that has to do with mystery or detectives or some detectives and PIs or something like that. Mm. So I'm waiting for information from the person who's organizing it so that I know exactly what's expected from me when I'm doing it. So there's panels during the whole event. There's panels, there's takeovers, there's interviews. Like I'll be doing some interviews on Blab of the different authors and things like that. So that'll be fun, but it's all weekend and it's free. Come and go as you like.
Pretty cool.
And a lot of it's being recorded. So all my interviews that I do will go over on YouTube. And then there's another person who's recording a lot of information that's happening panel-wise and all that. I don't know how they're going to do all of this because I don't know how that part's organized. But some of it will certainly be available after the fact so that you can see what happened at the event. So that's really exciting. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But that was a good reason to delay the launch of the book.
Definitely.
From my perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To this. Because otherwise it would have been a really sleepy launch because, as you know, I wasn't planning to actually launch the book. It was more of a, hey, I put this book out sort of event. Now it'll be a little bit bigger.
How often do they do this Brain to Books thing? Is it just once a year?
Once a year, and this is the second year. And Angela can give you the stats on how many people were in it last year. Several hundred people participated last year, I think. I can't remember what she thought the number was right now, just based on authors and readers who have signed up for stuff. But I think you can
doesn't Brian Cohen do a similar thing? He did a thing, didn't he?
It's not like this. What I understand that he's done has been basically an author buy event on Facebook, and so he gets a bunch of authors together, and they all price their books at 99 cents, and that goes on for a period of time. Maybe a day or two. There's no convention aspect to it. So there's no panels. That's my understanding of it, that there's not all this other stuff. It's not a convention. It's an event, but it's not a convention.
Sure. I wonder, are there other econs like this?
Oh yeah. This is the first time that I've done this one, but the Ally group, in the past, they've done one called Indie Recon, and I participated in that last year. And I knew about it the year before, and it's really cool. Well, this year they have a different format to it. It was before like a 3-day thing or whatever, if I remember right, 2 or 3 day thing. Now they're doing it so that it's one day and it's attached to a convention or conference that's happening, like Book Expo America or something like that. So it's tied to a specific event. And so I think I sent you the link, and I don't have it in front of me now, but if you go to the Ally website, Alliance of Independent Authors website, you can find details about Indie Recon. It's not called that anymore. And the first one is coming up in April, actually. But it's a 1-day thing. And that you can see who's scheduled to speak and what they're speaking about over on the Ally website. I don't know that I'm going to do this one because the speakers that are there are speakers that I've heard a lot of their stuff already. So I don't know that I'll do this one. But there's, I think, 3 more planned, 2 or 3 more. And they're spread out through the year because Ally got feedback saying, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if you did this more often and spread them out? And so that's apparently how they decided to do it. So there's that. And then for children's books and middle grade, that sort of thing, there was one called Write On Con. And I did that one a couple of years ago, and that was a lot of fun. That was all online and forums and things like that. It was Twitter. We were doing Twitter chats, forums, Facebook. I mean, it was similar to the Branded Books things, but it was just really specific about, it was for authors. It wasn't for authors and readers. And that was cool. They did video, there's recordings of sessions and things like that. Really cool. I don't know if the Write On one is happening again. So I haven't looked at that because I've been focusing on the adult fiction. But yeah, there's a few, and these are free. They're free and fun to participate in. There was a self-publishing summit one. I think it was self-publishing. I can't remember. There's a guy named Chandler Bolt who he puts together, or has in the past put together, a free sort of conference, and he does it all, or the one I caught anyway, he did it all with video, all interviews and things. And that was how I discovered a few people that I really found very interesting. And one of them is James Clear. I love the way he writes. It's all nonfiction, but he does a lot of stuff on habits and habit formation and life and growth and things like that. I found him through this Chandler Bolt and his stuff. So he might be somebody to check out for the stuff that he does. I think that's it though. For the moment, that's what I'm thinking. All the other ones cost money. I mean, all the other conferences that I can think of aren't cost. My the Writers Guild that is here in Nebraska has their conference coming up. They do 2 conferences a year, and it's not very expensive to go. I mean, can't remember what it was, but it's not expensive. The hotel is more expensive than attending the conference, and it's only like one night and then the next day. It's not all weekend. But there's local places might have that. If you have a Writers Guild in your area, they may have something like that.
Yeah. All right, that's something for me to research.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can get more info on that. That's great.
Yeah. And have some fun with that. They bring in cool people. I would love to go to Thriller Fest in New York. It's really expensive. I mean, it's expensive to go to New York to begin with, but the Thriller Fest itself is a really long event and pretty expensive. But at some point, I would like to go to that one. It would be a lot of fun.
What are you calling very expensive?
I would need a couple $1,000s to just go to that event. It would cost me quite a bit to get there. And then it would cost, I worked it out earlier in the year because it happens every July. And I wanted to know what I would need in order to be there. And I could reduce my costs in terms of housing because I can stay with friends. But they're in Jersey, so I'd still have to make sure I had transportation to get back, get on the ferry, get on the train, and all that. But that's still cheaper than getting a hotel room because the hotel rooms are notoriously expensive in the area. And I know, having lived in hotels for 3 years, I know that cost is high.
Yes, financial and personal.
Yes, it is.
Living out of hotels is hard living.
Yes, living in hotels is not what it's cracked up to be. People always just say, "Oh, it's so cool! You travel for a living. That must be so much fun." And like, yeah, maybe for the first month, and then after that, like, not so much. Not so much.
Yeah,
Living
that's for sure.
Not the best plan. Although the upside was I didn't have to pay for everything. I mean, it was on someone else's dime. Can't complain about that, right? So that's pretty cool. And the hotel I lived in, I was there. I had my own room. I got the same room all the time because I was a, resident in the hotel.
Everybody knows my name.
That was cool. I got to staff. We hung out, went out, we did stuff. It's cool. There were some upsides to that, but it is expensive to go. And Thriller Fest is not cheap, although worth it. I know if I went, I'd have just a great time and learn so much if I was able to go to it. So
the ticket cost for the door is a couple $1,000. So it costs that much to get in.
Go is expensive too, and it depends on what you're doing because there's different tracks, and so it's not all the same. So it depends what you're doing. Is expensive, and I don't remember the exact numbers now, but I also know that when I was pricing the hotel and then figuring in cost of flight, that was going to be pretty expensive for the timing. It's July. Going in summer, it's not going to be necessarily a cheap flight. Not from here, not from where I am. And so, okay, I'll go eventually. It's on my list. I will go eventually.
Absolutely.
And have a great time. It's just not in the cards right now. That's all. I'm cool with that. I got to get more books out anyway.
That's right. Gotta
I have
keep
to get a
working
lot more done. So that's what's going on here. I have to work on. I have an interview this afternoon. Actually, somebody's interviewing me.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
Who's
So,
interviewing?
oh, that's cool. A
Do you
woman
remember?
named Beth Gaden. I don't know her. I met her through a group I'm in called She Podcasts, and she has a podcast. It's called Live It, Write It, Heal It. And so she is going to interview me later today. And so, oh, I probably ought to prepare for that. I was looking at my calendar, my schedule, going, oh yeah.
Well, you've lived it and you've written it, so I don't know. All you got to do is think a little bit about what healing is in order, and you should be in good shape.
Yeah. I don't, and I have no idea what she'll be asking me, of course. So it's interesting. You know, some people who interview me, they send me questions ahead of time, give me a really good idea of what we'll be talking about, so I can prepare a little bit. But oftentimes I don't get that, and I'm cool with that. That doesn't bother me at all, because that's basically what I do. I don't send questions to people. I don't give them a lot of heads up. I just say, hey, we'll chat about generally this, so just be ready for that, you know, and we'll see where the interview takes us, because it's a lot more fun that way. I think more organic than being overly prepared. And that's the thing, is if you're going to have an interview with somebody, you want to be prepared but not overly prepared, because then it sounds like it's scripted, and that's just not very entertaining. Kind of like this isn't scripted, so it becomes really entertaining to people because it's not scripted.
Right.
Just saying, it's not scripted.
No,
you're wondering.
I doubt anyone is wondering. I'm sure they're all like, yeah, no, we can tell it's not scripted. We know you guys are just,
you know, and this is different than when I do the Womanly Art of Self-Defense podcast. It is scripted to a certain degree, because I'm pre-recording all of those, and so I have to actually think through what it is I want to do, and so it's a little more scripted.
sure.
And that's hard for me, because I'd rather it not be, but it's pre-recorded.
Right.
So
and you're trying to make a particular set of content. You're trying to talk about something specifically. So
right. So it's a little different. But Backwards Writer is not like that. It's I had a guest on today, Lynn Chandler Willis, and she's a Seamus Award finalist. Seamus has to do with mystery, thriller writing, detective novels, PIs, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And she won an award. She was the first woman in 10 years to win this one particular award for writing the best, like, first PI novel. Like, isn't that something that it took 10 years for them to figure out that a woman could do this? And she's like, yeah. So we got a good laugh out about that. These are lots of women who write mystery thrillers or write mysteries, you know,
Sure.
detective. They're in that feeling, yet this first time in 10 years that happened. I thought, oh, that's just wrong. That's so wrong. But she was on the show, and that was a fun conversation, because we were talking a little bit about that. But, you know, eventually I'll get there too.
You will, of course.
I'll get there too.
All right. Is there anything else we're covering today, or is that pretty much everything?
I think that's pretty much it. You should check out that Brain to Books and see if it's something that interests you.
I so want to do that. Every time you've talked about it now for the past couple of weeks, I keep thinking, I really got to do something with that. I got to get involved. I will dig in and see if there's any way for me to even just kind of give them a wave and say, hey, you guys are cool. I got to do that. I'm so heads down on kind of this course stuff that I don't know, I'm not even taking a second to kind of pop my head up and breathe, but I will do that today. I'll make some time and do that for sure.
And remember, Hardy, you, everybody who listens, I've got Indies at Backwards Writer over on Goodreads as a group that I just started a couple weeks ago. So I'm still building the threads and things, but it's fun. Last time I checked, there were about 8 members or something in the group. Not a lot of interaction yet, so go over there and check it out. And I'm not even married to the name. I just couldn't think of anything else. And so that was why I put it like that. But, you know, it was one of those things. I was trying to brainstorm names, and I was doing a brainstorming party of one. It wasn't working. And so I said, okay, I'll just do Indies at Backwards Writer on Goodreads, and we'll leave it at that. But anyway, go check it out over on Goodreads as a group. And
absolutely. Yeah, I will do that. Awesome.
So I'm going to go get ready for this interview.
All right, now I'm dead.
Thanks. Have a great week, and everybody else have a great week, and we'll see you next.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
See you later.